No, I've only been there once, but I know this where I want to settle down. I love Seattle.
Yeah.
I love Seattle. Wonderful things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and get right to it. Hello and welcome to an episode of Take Up Space Podcast. I am your host, Leah, and I am with our resident professor, Professor Jason. How are you?
Whoop, whoop. Do people don't whoop whoop anymore, huh? They
I
don't do.
think I think people I whoop.
Is it still acceptable? Yeah.
I
I
think I
think
think so.
I think the only person I can remember that still whoops is Vicky Gumbelson from Real Housewives of Orange County. Well, no, she does. Yeah, whoop it up. Like, whoa! I can't go up that high, but yeah.
Is it a shriek?
Basically, it's like if you can imagine somebody going down a hill in a wagon.
Oh no.
It's just like woohoo, and she does it every time before she takes a shot and stuff.
That woohoo sound that you just did was the same woohoo sound, like the same pitch as Living Single at the end of the intro,
Yeah, it was, wasn't it?
at the outro.
And then the giggle.
Yes. That's Oh. Jason, what are we talking about today?
I don't know. I can't remember. Can I?
We're talking about perception. Yes, perception versus reality.
Doctor Strange versus Iron Man. Perception, Doctor Strange. Reality, Iron Man. I don't know how that
The
works
mirror
out.
world?
Yeah. Well, I just thought of
Or
this. I have to think on the fly. It's because Doctor Strange's stuff is all based in illusions and stuff, right? For the most part.
very
Tony
true.
Stark is based in plasma blasts and rockets and drone strikes, right?
Right.
Or Tony Stark was. Sorry, spoiler alert. Sorry.
I heard these people who haven't even seen the movie.
It's been a year now. It's been a year. How many pandemic years? It's been what, 4 pandemic years, right?
It's been we're in our second decade of the many years of pandemic sadness.
Little baby quarantine, little corruption.
Oh, there's so much happening.
Too much happening.
But
That's based in reality.
yes, and we need to talk about our perception of what our reality is. You know what? Here's the thing. I am a very analytical person, some might say.
I've got my diagnosis too.
I tend to I tend to view things as more analytical, logical, based in fact, based in numbers, not as emotional as some other people are. So sometimes it's hard for me to understand where a person is coming from based on when they're coming to me based in raw emotion.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So we have this perception, right? Of because I'm a very direct person, and a lot of people can look at me and say, "Well, I assume that you would respond to a situation like this,"
Mm-hmm.
and their perception of me could mean rejection, could mean jealousy, it could mean hateration, as Mary J. Blige once put it.
You mean your perception of how they view you, right? Their
Yes,
perception.
yes. But in reality, I could be very accepting, very welcoming, very open. But that perception of who I am kind of dictates how the other person or the other party would receive anything that I say or anything that I do.
Mm-hmm.
And how I think my biggest thing is I don't know in conversation in relationships
Mm-hmm.
how much of it is my responsibility to make sure that the other party or the other audience, because there's always going to be people are going to feel how they want to feel,
Right.
right? How much of it is my responsibility to help or assist the audience in understanding the message
Mm-hmm.
that I'm saying? You know what I mean?
Mhm.
without them having a negative feeling, because there's a lot of stuff, right, that we have all this internal noise.
Mhm.
Remember when that other girl did this, or that other dude said this, or when they did this, and she gonna do you the same way, and it's like
Entire lives, all these excuses.
right, there's all this internal noise, and it's I'm not really sure how much of my, because I can only control me, how much of it is my responsibility to control the message.
Mhm.
Because I can say, hey Jason, I appreciate you for taking care of this, but at this point I really don't think that it's going to be a good fit.
Mhm.
And you
I
can
would
take
just
that.
piss it off, storm out that room. I don't know why I would storm out of that room. It's my room. I get to hang it up. But I would storm out just for dramatic purposes, right?
I mean, you can go so many different ways with it, and
Just to stand right outside that door, just for the point
just to make sure that I knew you were done.
that you know that this was done.
Yes, yes. But how much of it is or how much of responsibility do you take? Because I know everybody's different, but I kind of get caught up in how much of it is my responsibility, that this person understands that I mean no harm, I mean no malicious intent. Um, because we deal, especially as adults now, we have people who have grown up and don't know how to express themselves,
Right.
or they become people pleasers, or they um, feel like that everyone's out to get them.
Mhm.
And when they meet a person who genuinely has no ill will toward them, they
Mhm.
still take it as such. So how do you navigate those kind of situations in your relationships?
I It's tricky because I'm one of those people that I'm diagnosed as an HSP, highly sensitive person, which I hate saying. Diagnosed is a very dramatic way of saying it, but that's
It is very
very
true. I'm like,
theatrical.
so what kind of test did they run on
It's
you? You have
terminal.
to read the
No,
manual
but yeah,
along.
it just goes back to like how you receive information, how you receive, like how your senses react to things and stuff like that. Basically, I just say that I'm very empathetic. So for me, I'm always that person that's when information is given to me, or if somebody, like if you were to, in that scenario, when you were to fire me or whatever, or kick me out of here, ask me to leave your show, I would receive it in the worst way possible, and I would just keep playing it over and over in my head. Like, well, what did if I did this wrong? Or even if you came to me and said something along the lines of, "Hey, in case you have something else that you need to do, don't ever feel like you have to do this. I appreciate your help." I would read into it, even if you told me as much as you enjoyed having me on the show. I would read into it to the point where it's like, well, did she really, or is she just saying that I just because I'm here right now? Is she just trying to get me to do something? Is she just do something
Mhm.
for me? What did I do wrong? Oh, okay, and just go through every single scenario possible. And really, that, and I'm just coming based on the opposite side of where you're coming from, or where you are.
Right.
Um, that reaction, I had to kind of step back and realize that like things aren't all about me, and that it's like very ego driven on my part. Uh,
So,
yeah,
oh my gosh.
yeah, because as introverts, for me personally, as an introvert, I'm someone who is extremely observant, and so I'm very attuned to like the environment and everything that's going on around me, because it's like a have to be ready to go at any point.
Mhm.
But it also means that in the grand scheme of things, I'm very focused on protecting myself based on previous experiences that have caused me to feel like I have to protect myself all the time, if that makes sense.
Yes, it
And
does.
so I'm always looking for those alarms in my interactions with other people.
But okay, the phrase "whatever you're looking for, you're gonna find."
Yep.
Does that ring
Yes.
true?
Yes. That always rings true. It's like you have to step back and be like, okay. is that really there, or am I putting it there? Is that my projection? Am I projecting onto?
Right. Okay, so because and I'm glad you said it, because that was my next thing. So in all honesty, there's not really much that me as a person I'm able to effectively change or do to make someone else, because they have to do the work within themselves internally, because it's just internal noise they're hearing.
Mhm.
Um, not saying that I can be brutish or I can be mean or
Yeah, you
uh,
still have to be conscious of how you're approaching people and how you're interacting with people. But that's
exactly.
just basic courtesy, basic couth.
Right, just be
Couth.
respectful, right?
Right.
So it's not that I have a pass because you're sensitive. I can talk to you however I want to talk to you.
Right.
However, it's not. I don't feel it's my responsibility to coddle you or to make sure, because
Mhm.
there's not any way that I'm going to make you feel safe. I can't make you feel safe.
Mhm.
And so since that's the case, and it's funny because I told another person this. I was just like, um, when you think that people are out to get you or people are doing things intentionally to hurt you and they're being malicious or whatever the case may be, whatever you feel, it is because you are selfish.
Mhm.
And when I tell you this person looked at me all kinds of crazy, I was like, I am giving you God's honest truth. You are selfish because you are stuck in your own head and think that everybody is out to get you. There may be some genuine concerns in there, but it's buried under all this stuff of internal noise that you've previously experienced. But I have not, me personally, Leah, this being, has not given you any reason to feel as if, at least that you told me, and I haven't done anything intentionally to give you any reason to think that I'm out to get you or that
Right.
I'm being malicious in anything that I'm saying. So
Mhm. That
I tell people, oh, go
yeah.
ahead.
I was just gonna say that reminds me of that one student. Remember that I told you guys about last year? Yeah, it was just last year. Remember the person that pushed the teacher in the class and stuff when she would just sit in the class with her headphones on and stuff. This is college, by the way. Like
Mhm.
she pushed the teacher in
I
class.
was like, wait a minute. Put your
Yeah,
hands on the teacher. Why would you put your hands on the teacher? Okay, yes,
yeah.
I remember.
Because we asked her to do group work. So yeah.
Yeah. But
Fun times.
I just think that people I tell people that is that, or I told people I had this conversation. I was like, you're selfish. It's a pride thing. You're worried about hurting your pride. You're worried about hurting yourself and all this kind of stuff. But I tell people, like, when I am conversing with them, that emotional side, that sensitivity side,
Mhm.
is not something that I experience regularly. So I'm not really in tune when you're going through that. So that's my blind spot in relationships. That's one of my blind spots in relationships. So I tell them ahead of time, if I ever do or say something to you that's offensive, don't hold on to it. Don't tell people in our shared mutual circle.
Mhm.
Don't, if you have to go and talk to somebody, get advice and come back, that's fine. But if your only out is to talk to other people and not come to me, then we can't have a real relationship. It
Mhm.
doesn't work like that. And I don't understand. I know that confrontation is not easy for everyone,
Mhm.
but at some point you have to be able to at least advocate for yourself or stand up for yourself to say, hey, I know that I am sensitive. And just the way you said those things to me in this moment don't really make me feel good. Just being able to make that statement would make me realize that, hey, it could be my tone, it could be my posture, it could be the timing,
Mhm.
because you may have just gotten 4 back-to-back calls, and I'm giving you a fifth call back to back.
Like, I think this energy was for Mr. Smith, not me.
Right, right. So I try to tell people, or to keep them aware that, hey, I do have this personality,
Mhm.
but you have to help me out because it's a lot to manage me. It's going to be we're not in a relationship. You're not paying any of my bills. And you still want me to do all this extra work, and you're not going to help me. Like you have to tell me. It's not. I don't think that's fair.
Yeah, it has to go both ways for both you as a speaker and the other person as the audience. So
Right.
both of you guys have to actually meet and crap, I'm going back to writing again. But you have to meet in the middle. Like you have to figure out where your audience is coming from as a speaker, and the audience has to understand the experiences and the approach that the speaker is bringing to the table. And then
Right.
that way you can understand, okay, this energy that they've had, maybe that's energy that they mean to direct at their mother or father or something, but I'm receiving it right now. And that'll do two things. That'll make it so that you're not internalizing everything that is being given to you as a sensitive person. And two, it will help you turn it back around to that person like, okay, I'm getting this energy that you're giving out right now, and I don't think it's for me. What's going on? And so then you guys can start to unpack the relationship that way too. One thing that I did want to point out, you mentioned the selfishness thing. I would actually counter, and I would actually disagree and say that for the most part, in my experience, from what I've seen both from my students and acting as somewhat of a counselor to my students, it's not so much that they're selfish in thinking that people are attacking them or thinking that things are an attack on them. It goes more so back to lack of confidence in a situation, in any given situation, and feeling like they're not good enough. And so they're kind of receiving things as every bit of information as, yeah, an attack on them, but more so an attack on their quality of work and making it kind of hammering away and chiseling away at that feeling of that they're not good enough.
Oh, so you're talking about criticisms of work? No,
Yeah.
yeah, okay. So in
And
that
so,
aspect, yes, okay.
yeah, not so
I can
much.
agree with you on that one.
Not so much, at least in my experience. Maybe it's a different experience, and maybe you've had repeated experiences with different clients and stuff. But I would actually think of it more as a knock on confidence, and so that's why like that questioning and like almost like okay, why are they making me question myself, and why are they questioning me, and why are they doubting me? When in reality, it could just even be a suggestion, a very mild suggestion, and
Mm-hmm.
that inner voice, like you mentioned, that inner record is playing, and they're projecting that inner record that goes back, yeah, it goes back to childhood, goes back to those early teachers and stuff who told them that they weren't good enough, or that maybe they stirred the cornbread too much or something, right?
Right.
Going back to those things that just tell you should, what you need to do, you should, what I would do, you need to. Those things, they're taking those voices and they're projecting them onto you in that moment, onto the speaker in that moment. Because I've had
Okay.
students who have like read like actual stuff that has been published and felt like it was an attack on them because based on their previous experiences. And it's like, okay,
Mm.
wait, he's just talking about how Black voices aren't protected in this space. Have you not protected Black
Right.
voices
Like
before?
why are you identifying with this thing?
Like, let's
Um,
unpack that.
yeah,
But it, it's,
I can agree with that in your space
yeah,
because when you are talking about connections that people have with the writings and where they feel that they can improve upon in that space, I can understand. I was more so talking about the people who, because the people who I've worked with and as adults and young adults alike, they ultimately some are introverted, most are introverted, but they're more so turning out to be like people pleasers.
oh,
So
good question. How did you befriend so many introverts? Considering the
I
fact that
don't
I'm an
know, they
introvert,
gravitate toward
Roy is an
me.
introvert, you gravitated to me. You made me follow you on Twitter.
First of all, you
Sorry, my
said
voice just got high.
no. You I said, hey, what's your name? Oh, I'm Jason. Oh, cool. I'm Leah. And then you asked me, "Do you have a Twitter?" I
Did
said,
I?
"Yes, yes, you did," because
I
I had
probably
to
did.
remember because I just set it up like that week before. But I hadn't been on it because I forgot my username. Next day, I came back to class. You said, "Hey, you gave me the wrong name. Like I
Right,
gave you the wrong
right.
number or something." You were just like,
That's right. That's right.
so,
See, if I
but
were more ego driven, I would take this as, why is she calling me a liar? No, it's not. And I would combat with you.
we did go back and forth for like 2 minutes because I was like, no, I gave you the right name. And then I was just like, oh, yeah,
Oh, you
it's
mean
oh
back
04.
then?
Yeah, back then.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You didn't give me the right name, by the way, did you?
I didn't. I left off the 04 on that
Yeah.
one.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Poor
But
Jason. Um,
but I think that it's ego driven
yeah,
because and I don't know, I just thought about it. I do somehow, some way, a lot of introverted people are attracted to me. Don't even know how that happened, but they put on a facade like they're extroverts until I'm ready to go out and do stuff, and then they're
I
just
didn't.
like, "No, I don't want to do
For the
anything."
record,
Just
I have always been a loud and proud introvert
I don't know.
with extrovert tendencies.
That is
Every once
true.
in a
That is true.
while,
There
I'm
have been many a
extremely proud.
time. Hey, let's go to Old Sac.
I'm just like,
Yeah, so we
I'm
went
just,
like last week. We don't have to do this every weekend. You know that,
yeah.
right? We don't have to do this every weekend.
And I think that's what's killing me with the pandemic. Slightly off topic right now, but I think that's killing me with the pandemic stuff because it's like I just want that one outing. I just want to go out once, and then I can go another 4 months with being in the house. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that.
I'm losing it here.
I want the
I
option.
am. Me and the voices are getting along very well. I just want you to know that we've taken long walks and it's been nice. Yeah,
But
it's been nice.
yeah, I get where you're coming from too.
But it's when I say selfish or prideful, that's just
Mhm.
because in my space, that's what it has been.
That's how it.
They look at it as a sense of attack, even when it's something even when it's something simple. Like I if I and it's not the crazy thing is it's not even a criticism, right? They'll bring up a situation and we'll talk about the situation because people talk and just like, oh man, this is going on, blah blah blah. And I say, okay, well, why would you think if these are the words they use, this is what they said, how did you get that out of this? Show me your work. Like where in this process did you get this negative thing? Because they didn't say anything remotely like that.
Mhm.
What has happened in that relationship that got you to this point? Okay, now you're acting out of selfishness because that had nothing to do with anything.
Mhm.
Like, and so it's just like even with me when they're talking with me and they I don't know why I do befriend a lot of people who don't like confrontation and who are introverts. It's weird. It's You're making me think about it. I'm just like, I do. But when we do eventually talk about it, they say that they didn't feel comfortable bringing it up for one reason or another. And it's not that I'm that difficult of a person to deal with. They just don't want to have that
You want to
confrontation,
rock the boat.
right? But it's for me. I feel better when we do have a confrontation because then at least I know that you're not just a yes person. You're not just a people pleaser. You're not just um, looking for things to be easy and us to spend time. The only way I think we grow is through tension. That's how we grow. That's how we move forward.
One of the ways that you can approach that then is this isn't something I've personally dealt with, but just from what I understand about people,
Mm-hmm.
when encouraging those kinds of not really confrontations, but just those discussions, that just makes it sound like, oh, we need to have a discussion. But having those kind of interactions with people just
Right.
reassures that, like, okay, this isn't going to change anything. Because one of the concerns that a lot of introverts have about confrontation is that if they confront someone about a situation or they confront someone about an action, then that'll be the end of that relationship. Like that's going to change that relationship, no matter how minor that fault may be when it comes up.
Right.
They feel like if it's brought up, then it's going to change the dynamic drastically. Um,
And it's not that hard to make that leap. I get that sentiment.
A lot of
I
times in their history
completely
that has happened. Like
Right.
that's
I completely understand that
right,
sentiment because I've been through that. I understand that because I'm thinking if I say this thing to, let's see, a relationship that I treated like porcelain.
Jordan.
Um, um, we'll take my parents, right? So I treated the relationship like porcelain. Like I treaded very softly on what I wanted to say until I became like, I feel like I was an adult the moment that I could like speak openly and honestly with my parents. Like that's the moment. Not paying these bills, not having a real job, not getting a dog, not living on my
Retaliate.
own, but actually having a full adult conversation with my parents. That's when I feel like I became an adult, for real, for real. And but for a while, for a couple of years, I was just like, if I say this, I feel like it's going to be this, blah blah. But then when I realized that one, it's not going to be the end of the world, right? Two, our relationship is way stronger than any discussion or confrontation that I could have with them, right? And our relationship is not tense in any way. It was just that, learning how to advocate for myself and have
Right.
agency in their presence is a little bit different than like I'm not 8 years old anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like being able to have those kinds of conversations. But I get this, I get the sentiment of not wanting to rock the boat and not wanting to have such a huge change in the relationship or lose that relationship.
Right.
But I also feel like if it's not worth the risk of losing it to make yourself be seen or to advocate yourself, then the relationship isn't really worth it because you're not getting much out of it. Like the stuff that you get out of it, whether it be emotional, mental, physical, or spiritual, whatever you're getting out of that relationship is ultimately the trade-off is not worth it because you're losing parts of yourself by shrinking yourself into almost nothingness for the sake of to say that I have a relationship with this person.
Right. Yeah. I agree with that part.
So that's why I say that it boils down to selfishness of just like out of self-preservation and whatever that means, you choose not
Survivalist.
to say anything because you don't want to lose whatever this is.
Mm-hmm.
Which now that I can understand that from when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
But now, where we are in life, it's the relationship is not real or worth it if we can't have honest conversations. I'm not saying that we have to have a come to Jesus every single time we sit down. I'm not saying that everything has to be a round table or red table talk discussion,
Bring myself to
but but at the same time, we need to make sure that the both parties, all parties involved, are creating a positive space for either person to be able to enter the relationship knowing that they will be heard and they will be respected.
right.
That's it.
Yeah.
At least
And
for me. At least for me. I mean,
right.
relationships are not that simple, but they really are. But
Right.
that's how I see them.
And even in that case, if it's not that way for the other person, again, if the relationship is worth salvaging or not salvaging, worth enhancing and making it even better,
Mm-hmm.
then there would be a middle ground. And there would be a middle ground where it's like, okay, maybe I won't bring at least starting out, bring every slight up to you, but at least I'll speak up for myself and advocate for myself in some sense when there are major things going on. Um, or even the other way around, if it's a slight thing that's going on, I'll bring it up and remind you to correct yourself
Right.
and
Because
start
that's all we
up.
can ask. Like if a person cares about you or they say they're rocking with you or they love you that much, you bringing up, hey, when we were at the party and you said this, I really didn't feel really good about that.
or even in jest. That's what I do with Jordan. Like I'll randomly drop it, like because my family suffers from hangryism horribly, and if we can at this point we can all read it with each other. Even when I'm talking to my mom, I'll just be on the phone and I'll just, did you eat? She'll be like, no, and then she'll have her words with me, and I'm like, okay, okay, have dinner. I'll talk to you in a little bit, and then I'll call her back after she eats, and I'm like, yeah, I knew you were hungry, and just bringing stuff up and just like that, that
Right.
can help too. If and that actually lightens the load with trying to create, not create conflict, but trying to advocate for yourself. Just finding like an in that way. Conversation usually presents, or an opportunity presents itself in most conversations to bring up that moment
Right.
where you feel kind of slighted, and so kind of work it in that way. It doesn't have to be like a formal sending a royal decree from like three
Right.
weeks in
From the
advance.
desk of Leah Johnson.
RSVP,
You,
so I can
sir.
read you.
Yeah.
Like it
No,
doesn't
I'm
have to be
not
like
RSVPing for any reads.
yeah, it doesn't have
Just
to, it doesn't have to be like a, oh, we need to talk and have like a discussion type thing. It can be
Mhm.
bring something up, talk about it for maybe 5 or 10 minutes, and then work through it, and then keep it moving.
Right, right. It doesn't. It
Yeah,
literally does not have to be the end of the world.
and
It
honestly,
doesn't have to be.
that's one thing that I've learned just over like the last maybe year and a half or so,
Hmm.
that like advocating for myself doesn't, one, it doesn't have to mean that I have to sit down and talk to the person right there in that moment. I can
Right,
journal about it first. I can work through it by myself, and then decide whether it's worth bringing up or worth whether it's worth the headache. Because even if the reader has the best intentions,
hmm,
sometimes it's like, okay, is it worth my energy to bring this up, or should I just make moves to make sure that something like this doesn't happen again, and make sure that I'm protected without isolating myself or shutting someone out. Um,
yeah, yeah. That
so
takes a lot of maturity too.
yeah, that's honestly something I've learned over the past year with my new life coach, is that I do have a fairly high degree of just maturity, and I didn't realize it. It's more so that I don't want certain things added to my anxiety load. And it's like, okay,
Right, like just saying I can't afford to worry about that.
yeah, like okay,
Like,
this is not my problem to worry about, so I'm gonna walk away from it. Like this, I can take in what you're telling me right now, especially if it doesn't have anything to do with me.
right,
But or even if it does have something to do with me, if I disagree with it, I can take it in, I can examine it, I can analyze it and everything, and I can decide, this isn't my problem to worry about. This is your perception of me, and I can accept that. I can accept that you see me that way, but
right.
this isn't mine to deal with. This is something for you to work out with your past and your history and stuff. Um, and so sometimes it is just kind of worth it to, not worth it, but it is called for to just kind of look at a situation, analyze it, go through it, and then decide, okay, this isn't worth my time. But that doesn't help with what we're going through right now, right? With what you're talking about. It doesn't. So I did write
No,
down a few
I think for the other party, I think it
yeah.
does. I think for the other party it does. And I think that is really important. If because I try to be as aware as I can for my about my audience.
Mhm.
I try to make sure that I am making the right using the correct rhetorical devices,
Mhm.
that I am I try. I try. I don't always do, but I do try. And I think that in my trying, the effort has to be a two-way
Yeah,
street.
it has to be matched.
So,
You only have enough gas to get to, or only going to use enough gas to get halfway down the block. Why am I
right.
using these horrible metaphors?
Just, just
Get halfway down the block.
we're
You
just
need
gonna
them
go
to
with it.
hop on the bike and go. I did want to just real quick just clarify when I say like examining a situation and stuff and just deciding to walk away from it, one thing that I've had to navigate as a very sensitive person is making sure that I'm not just relying on that flight situation. And sometimes, like, it is worth it to sit there and fight and look at a situation and to actually confront the person about it. So it really does take a lot more work than one would assume, because the easy way out is to just look at something like, well, I'm not going to deal with this, I'm going to walk away. You have to really look at it, take the time, unpack it, and then actually decide, okay, no, I have to advocate for myself right now. I have to actually communicate with this person right now and get my point across, even if it's not going to be received well. And you have to have, that does come with a degree of confidence to actually sit there and say, I'm going to say my piece right now. And if they don't receive it well, then that's that. And that's on them.
I think that is a good way to look at it, especially when, because confrontation is a part of our life daily, right?
Yeah.
It could be something as simple as correcting a person when they say your name wrong, to
Leah.
something as egregious as someone ate your food that you've been thinking about all day in the refrigerator. Could happen. You may have to have that confrontation. You may have to have that talk with your roommates or other people in the house. It could. And so there are so confrontation is necessary. And from what we talked about, I think a couple things that I have taken away is that um, as important as it is for me to be aware, I can only go so far
Yeah.
in that, but I have to allow the other person to grow as well. And so giving them that opportunity, giving them that space for me to recognize, okay, this energy is not being directed towards me. It's being directed towards me, but it's not for me.
Yeah. You don't have
It's
to receive it. It can
actually
be,
towards someone else.
it can be thrown at you, but you don't have to receive it.
Right, because they have perceived me in such a way based on the lenses that they're using to look at me through, because they may have been hurt before. This may look like a previous pain. They may still have an open wound emotionally about different types of situations that look like this. And because of that, it's not, I don't have to be overly sensitive or coddling or things like that, but it's important for me to respect and acknowledge so that I can continue a conversation. But also on the flip side, it's up to the audience or the other party to do that growth,
Internal.
that maturity, the internal work to come out of, okay, this, let me see the situation for what it is. Because sometimes we look at situations as a whole and not just break it down to look at the one. This is what happened. It's not this is a domino effect, because if everybody's doing this to you, if everybody's doing, you're the common denominator.
Yeah. Where's that?
Like,
And honestly, one of the things that me and Jordan both say it all the time. Like when we're talking to when we talk to my mom and stuff, and she'll like go into certain tangents and stuff and just random things that are completely off from what we were talking about, but then it can kind of turn into something else. We'll be like, where is this coming from? And so I do a lot of that work with myself too, where if somebody says something to me, I'll say, where is that coming from? Why are they saying it to me like that? But
right.
I'll also ask myself, okay, where is my perception of this coming from? Why am I receiving it like this? What does this remind me of?
And I think we talked about that before too, and how important it is to do check-ins with yourself, because there are times where I can be more assertive, or I'm not, no, because I'm not saying aggressive. I wasn't going to say aggressive, but you said assertive, so I said assertive.
Assertive or you can go either of those. I'm not trying to censor you or anything, but
assertive or what?
Direct.
Yes.
But I don't want my friend calling herself aggressive.
No, because aggressive just is so negative. But yes, assertive.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yes. I always think of hulking out when I think of aggressive.
Yeah, and I know I was told, but yeah.
But I do think that even though in my assertiveness, it is important for me to make sure that that even though I'm able to establish myself,
Mhm.
that may not be the case for other people,
Mhm.
or advocate for myself. It may not be the case for other people. So
Also challenge you to redirect yourself when you feel like you are being direct with someone. Kind of not check yourself, but yeah, like step back and be like, okay, why am I coming at this person like this? Why do I feel like I'm defending myself like this? You know what I mean?
yeah, because my thing is one thing that I always try to do.
Together, you get your
I
stuff prepared. So think
listen.
about why you feel like you have to do that and who you're talking to in that sense. Where's that coming from?
Well, yeah, because my thing is like you bring up things in jest.
No,
I am like the guy on Office Space. What's his name?
I've never seen it. I'm sorry.
Goldberg? No, it's not Goldberg. I forgot the guy in my Office Space. It's like okay. He but my thing is saying couple things. So
Yeah, you do that a lot. Yeah.
couple things. Just want to bring this to your attention a little bit. That's really how I bring things up or when I talk about stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
it has helped me to be more light
Mm-hmm.
in the conversation so that I'm just like, so listen, what we not gonna do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to bring down that tone, but I'm like, hey, a couple things. Just wanted to point out a couple things to you. Just in case you were unaware, because I'm giving you the benefit of the
For
doubt, please
information.
understand this tone is coming from a very diplomatic, a very understanding, because I just want to have an understanding at the end of the day,
Mm-hmm.
before the day is over.
Do you feel like when you start your confrontations like that, do you think that makes it too clinical to make where people do feel like they're getting read to feel professionally?
Ah,
Do
I
you?
don't ask. I
Because
don't
see,
ask
okay,
because
there you go.
I don't ask because in the moment
It's all about you,
it needs to be said, and
and so that's your ego
it's
right
not
there.
that I don't care, but I don't care.
It's that what you have to say in that moment is more important than how they will receive it.
yeah, that's
That's
really
your
what
ego.
it
So a little bit of homework for you. Um, a
I
little bit of homework.
do like I'm like because before I just
Yeah,
tell you about yourself and walk away.
right.
I've gotten a lot better. I'm not where I used to be, but I used to very much be. Yeah, I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna just tell you about yourself and I'll walk away and let you sit in that. But now I want to be more cautious
Yeah,
about the way I bring things up. Not because everybody is so sensitive, but because people are more willing to be vulnerable with me.
yeah.
It's important for me to allow them to be free in that space that I create without
And
having to be so walled up and guarded.
it'll be create more growth between the relationship too for both of you guys. So then
Exactly.
you'll get a better understanding of how to communicate with people, with different types of people, more effectively and more productively,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll actually learn how to meet you and not receive your directness so personally.
Yes.
That's it.
Yes. But and I just remember you did bring up something else. It's I should have wrote it down as you were talking.
That's
Um,
what I've been doing. See,
the internal work. It's about the internal work that you said for
mm-hmm.
other people. For the
For both, for you, for the speaker and the writer, you have to really step back, and the speaker and the writer is the same person. The speaker
yes, I
and the
was gonna say
audience,
the audience. Okay,
the,
I was gonna see if you were gonna correct yourself.
the speaker and the audience both have to step back and ask themselves, okay, what am I bringing to the table, and how
Mm-hmm.
will it be received? And basically, that's just it. You have to ask yourself, what am I bringing to the table? Who's going to encounter it, and how they're going to receive it. When it's two people communicating directly to each other, just face to face, interpersonal, it's a bit easier because especially if like if I'm talking to one of my brothers or something, then I have those shared experiences from our childhood. I know how we were raised. I know
Right.
our family dynamic. I know how we communicate with each other. So it's easy for me to understand how to bring stuff up with TJ, my older brother, versus Jordan, my twin brother.
Right.
Um, whereas at the same time, when I am the audience and they're bringing something to me, if it's brought in a way where it's very harsh and direct, because I know that my family, we don't communicate very directly. So I know if they do say something very harsh and directly, then I know that there's other stuff that's going on that, okay, so what happened in your day that you're talking to me like this? Like, what's going on here? How was work? Have you eaten? Um,
Let's cover the bases
yeah, that's
first.
usually the first one. It's like, how'd you sleep? Do you have a migraine? Did you eat? And those are the three that we go through. And then it's like, okay, so who have you talked to today? What's going on? And then we can start to unpack stuff from there. But
Right.
I
So
have
that
to,
you're not coming at me with all
yeah.
this stuff. Yeah.
So like with any interpersonal relationship with my friends, I'll do the same thing. When with you, like with the way that you answer the phone sometimes, I'll be able to read like, okay,
Yeah. Be like, what's
did you
going on
talk to
here?
your parents today? Did you, how was work? Did you get one of those crazy calls today? Have you eaten? Like it'll be like that. You have to be able to read people, and you honestly, it goes back to just communication and just having empathy and just understanding, just being receptive of whatever those persons I don't want to say feelings because it's like feelings, whatever those persons characteristics are. Like you have to be able to pick up on those things, and
Mhm.
yeah, they're feelings. Like you have to be able to accept them, not take them on, but you have to be able to pull them in and be like, okay, if I was Leah in this situation, how would I react? If I was Jordan in this situation, how would I react if I was telling
But
him
that
something?
goes to like knowing the person,
Yeah,
and that's what it was. It was the weight of the relationship being worth it.
yeah,
You were taught, yes, okay, yeah, but knowing the person and knowing that, and like I was saying earlier, if
hmm
you know me like you think you know me, or like you
hmm
say you know me, then you would know that I haven't done anything to you intentionally or maliciously.
yeah,
Because if I'm still in communication with you, then obviously there's something there for us as far as relationship goes.
yeah. And it
Um,
kind of that goes back to the confidence thing, but it's not so much the confidence, like self confidence or confidence in the other person. It's about confidence in the bond of the relationship. I would argue, and
I
yeah,
agree. I
confidence
agree.
in believing that okay, no matter what, if I say this to this person, if I tell Jordan that the dog keeps barking too much or something, which I would never say, Misty never barks too much,
She's
or which now that I think about it, Jordan has a lot of confidence. My twin brother has a lot of confidence in our French in our brotherhood, our twinship bond, because like he'll tell me like, yeah, I don't think the cookies were that good this time. Like just come from my cooking like that. Like he'll tell me like, did you do something different? Like, oh. So now that I think about it, he has a lot of confidence that like
that is funny.
I will receive it well, which clearly I didn't because or I don't. But like having enough confidence to believe and to know that like okay, if I tell this person that the way that you talk to me, I think you could have been a lot nicer to me today. TikTok thing. Understanding that if you say that to them, it's okay. Tomorrow in an hour we'll be good. Tomorrow will be good. We'll be good, and we'll be better for it. Honestly,
Right. But
and
some people
having
don't
confidence.
think that it's worth it to bring it up in the friendship. If your relationship, I just want to put this out there. If you think your relationship is going to break based on a disagreement, then obviously your relationship isn't worth it or strong enough to begin with. So you have to really check yourself to see what you're really getting out of it. That's just a PSA to everyone out there. Those are my thoughts on it. I don't think that it's worth it. If you fear or are concerned with bringing, I'm not saying that if you cheated and you're trying to figure out how to bring it up to the other person, that's not what I'm saying. If that person, if there was an event of an offense
Yeah,
that was done and you're afraid to bring it up and you legitimately feel offended, regardless of what the world sees or whatever anybody else says, and you don't want to bring it up, that relationship is really not worth it, and um, you're putting more strain on yourself to be able to be a part of that relationship. So
I'm going to add to that for the people who are listening who maybe it's not that it's not worth it. It's also, in addition, not that it's not worth it, but sometimes it's also because the risk of losing that relationship it feels greater than actually potentially putting out there, because maybe they brought something like that up before to someone else and they did lose that relationship,
why are you
and so
still
they
with
don't
this
want to,
person? Why?
because it's almost like, okay, maybe it's worth, and honestly it depends on the offense and it depends on the relationship.
No, I'm talking about
So
like real offense, not like a slight, like, oh, you left me, or oh, you didn't return my call. I'm not talking
what
about
kind
nothing
of,
like that.
do you
I'm
have
talking
like
about
a,
like real, like you offended. You said what?
like you heard them call you the B word under their breath or something?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Or you hear them talking
Or
about the
some
stupid.
dude, like, because there was a guy, because I had to, some dude, I had to tell him, um, it was a guy I work with, and he called me. He was like, "What's up, my N word?" And I was like, "So what we not gonna do? I don't
What
know.
up?
Been hanging around, or what you thought this was. That is not how I get down."
I'm trying to think. I haven't had anybody say that to me in a while.
But
No.
I, but I could,
I see where you're coming from though.
I couldn't care more about the other person than I do my own space. I want to be free in my space. And if I have to walk on eggshells around certain relationships or different people, I can't bring you close. I'm not going to bring you close, because there are things I can't talk about, or things I can't express. There's a reason for me to be in a relationship with you. And that's just what it is. But yeah. So
Your homework. Remember, your
take
homework
from it
is
what you will. I hope that this helps you in learning how to, for those extroverts,
mhm,
being a little bit more sensitive and aware,
empathetic.
more
Not that you
empathetic.
have to be sensitive
You
to
don't have
their
to be
every
sappy.
need, but just kind of, I don't want to say read the room, but yeah, take a step back, think of, okay, why am I approaching this situation like this? Why do I feel like I have to be really direct and have this bullet pointed list
Right.
versus why, how are they going to receive this? And just understand that.
Do it
Not,
as a coaching as opposed to a criticism. I think that's the question you should ask. If you
mhm,
are an extrovert person trying to talk to an introvert person, or a person who is a little bit tougher, and
mhm,
you're dealing with someone who is more sensitive than you are, think about if there's a way you can coach as opposed to criticize.
mhm.
Because if you coach, you're just like, hey, let's try doing this. Criticism, you do this thing wrong. Let's figure out how we're going to do that. And to my sensitive people out there,
Whoop, whoop.
you know, doing some internal work
Mhm.
to help you get through. The world is not against you. Like I said, we are both like very strong proponents of therapy. It is a great thing.
You got to unpack.
Having people to talk to, who is unbiased, who will be unbiased to your situation, is amazing. It's great. It is wonderful. But really doing the work before you put your all into a relationship is going to be better for you in the long run, as opposed to taking not that extroverted people don't take offense to things, because
Right,
I can get offended, but the difference is, if I'm offended by something, I address it.
right.
Sensitive people are less likely to address it. Not I'm not putting everybody in one of two buckets, but sensitive people are less likely to address it. They're more likely to hold grudges, or
Mhm.
to have resentment or bitterness toward another party. It is always best if you feel safe in your space to express it, as opposed to hold on to it. So my encouragement for you is to do the internal work, talk to a therapist at least twice a year. Everybody should see a therapist at least twice a year.
For my sensitive people, I would say, you, if you don't want to go to a therapist, that's fine. just take a step back, look at your relationships, take inventory, and think about what you're bringing to the table, and think about maybe 2 or 3 different slights that you felt towards the other party in that relationship, and think about, okay, is that based on my perception of it, how I perceived it, or was this an actual offense? Because honestly, 90% of the time, it's more of a perception and how you receive something or how you perceive something
Mm-hmm.
based on previous experiences versus you actually having been slighted, which is still valid. It's still valid if whatever happened in that moment struck something up, but maybe bring it up with the party and remind them, when you did this, it reminded me of this bad experience that I have. So then the extroverted person that you're friendly with, they will understand to avoid that stickler spot, that sensitive spot.
Yeah, so that you both can probably work through it and grow from it, and you'll learn more about yourself, which is great.
Oh,
That's why I like to do it. But thank you all for listening to another episode of the Take a Space podcast. I am your host, Leah, and with Professor Jason. Thank you so much for coming today. I appreciate you so much.
I appreciate you, my extroverted friend. Introvert magnet, you.
Oh, I don't know how. Make sure you tune in next week. Follow us on all social media at Take Up Space Podcast. That's Take Up Space POD. Take Up Space Pod. Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. You can find Jason on Instagram at JJ underscore Newberry.
And Twitter, same thing, JJ underscore Newberry.
Yes. So we will see you all next time. Thank you so much for tuning in. We're here every Tuesday, 9 a.m. Central Time. You all have a great week. Please let us know in the comments. How do you deal with conflict? Is it a perception? Is it reality? How do you differentiate between the two? See you later.